People often fantasize that if one day they suddenly understood animal language, they'd become friends with elegant British shorthair cats or adorable short-legged dogs. But life isn't some romantic fairy tale. The superpower that dropped onto my head dragged me into a completely foul-smelling ecosystem. My companions? A pack of filthy sewer rats. Buzzing flies. And an army of cockroaches that scatter the moment they see light. A squad straight out of the gutter. But thinking about it, maybe the universe had its reasons. Because no one ever pays attention to these creatures crawling at the very bottom of society, they've become the most powerful intelligence network imaginable. And thanks to those four-legged informants, I became the first person to learn about a shocking logout right next to my wall. Good heavens! That sharp-tongued woman next door was gone. Strawberry syrup splattered everywhere. Her skull had been physically impacted to the point of being dented. Everything inside had spilled out. That piercing, shrill voice yanked me straight out of my nightmare. I jolted awake, eyes wide open, staring at the pitch-black ceiling. Cold sweat soaked through my entire back. The room was silent. Then, rustling. Rats. And worse, that creepy voice from my dream. It wasn't a hallucination. It was right next to my ear. She hides snacks like they're gold. Instead of leaving them in the kitchen, she stuffs them deep into the wardrobe. Typical broke person thinking. Even on holidays, she wouldn't dare buy half a fried chicken. One rat grumbled. Another urged, hurry up. Grab whatever you can and get out. If that big dangerous guy from next door comes over here, we're getting logged out too. The sound rang crystal clear in my ears. I froze for a few seconds, goosebumps running down my spine. Summoning all my courage, I reached out and switched on the bedside lamp. A dim orange glow spread across the shabby room. And there, less than half a meter away, two huge sewer rats. One was gnawing at the zipper of my bag. The other stood on its hind legs, ready to jump inside. We stared at each other. 3 seconds of silence. Then, like a reflex, all three of us screamed. Damn it! Seeing the two furry creatures turn to run, I quickly lowered my voice and hissed. Hey, don't run. You too. Wait, sorry, you guys just said someone next door got logged out, right? Where's the killer? Living in this rundown apartment that costs only about 650,000 VND a month, the walls are as thin as paper. There's basically no soundproofing, one loud sneeze is enough to alert the neighbor next door. Hearing me speak, the two rats slammed on the brakes, their claws scraping across the tile floor as they turned back. If rats had eyebrows, they'd be tightly furrowed right now. On their whiskered faces was pure confusion, shock, and fear. They whispered to each other. Oh my God, this broke girl is talking to us. She understands rat language? No way, what kind of creature is she? How can a human understand the wisdom of our species? Ignoring their sarcastic comments, I was desperate to confirm the horrifying information I had just heard. I nodded rapidly and whispered. Yes, I understand everything. Just tell me, what exactly happened next door? Then I quietly got off the bed and opened my cheap canvas wardrobe, the one I bought online on sale for 85,000 VND. I pulled out a plastic bag containing some leftover snacks, potato chips and dried chicken with lime leaves from a coworker's birthday party earlier that afternoon. All yours. I placed the bag gently on the floor, opened a pack of cheese-flavored chips, and scattered a few pieces. The rich cheesy smell instantly broke the defenses of the two gluttons. One rat grabbed a chip, chewing noisily as it spoke between bites. It's real, that big, rough-looking guy broke into that woman's room about 45 minutes ago. We went over to snoop and, man, strawberry syrup all over the floor. That sharp-tongued lady was lying there, not moving, eyes wide open and completely white, scared my uncle so bad he almost died on the spot. I frowned, sweat forming on my forehead. What about that big guy? The one who did it, has he left? The two small furry heads shook violently. No, no, he's still there. Looks like he even climbed onto the bed and fell asleep. The other rat corrected. Not next to her, he's lying right on top of that hibernating woman. He had just moved slightly, and my heart instantly jolted, pounding wildly as if it were about to burst out of my chest. A chilling sensation crept up my spine, there was no room left for jokes. Trembling, I grabbed my phone, and with my other hand I snatched the fruit knife lying on the table. Barefoot, I tiptoed toward the living room. Just as I finished checking the safety latch and was about to dial the police, a faint click echoed in the dead silence of the rundown apartment building. The metallic sound was so sharp it pierced my ears. The killer had just stepped out of the room. My whole body froze. Instinctively, I pressed myself tightly against the rotting wooden door, my eye glued to the peephole, trying to look outside, but it was useless. The hallway beyond was pitch black. The stingy landlord had never bothered to fix the motion sensor light that had been broken for months. Normally, when I came home from night shifts, I had to stomp loudly like a buffalo just to make it flicker on for a few seconds. Now, even though I couldn't see anything, through that narrow gap I vaguely sensed a cold draft carrying a nauseating, metallic stench slowly drifting past. Suddenly, crash! A loud noise rang out. It sounded like he had just kicked the pile of trash I had left by the door earlier that evening, planning to throw it out the next morning. Thanks to that noise, the damned sensor light finally flickered on. But damn it, it lit up at the worst possible moment. The dim light fell directly on a large, muscular man standing right in front of my door. He lowered his head, looking at the scattered aluminum and plastic debris he had just kicked aside. Inside, I was so terrified I stopped breathing. My hands clamped over my mouth as I screamed. The man finally lifted his heel, preparing to leave. But before his foot even touched the ground, his head, filled with killing intent, suddenly snapped back. Silently in my mind, "Go, please just go away, get out of my sight." As if hearing my desperate plea. His cold, piercing eyes locked onto my door. In that moment, time seemed to freeze. Through the peephole, I had the horrifying feeling that those devilish eyes could see straight into my soul. My heart skipped several beats. 1 second, 2 seconds passed, yet it felt like half a century of torture. In reality, it was probably only a dozen seconds. Then, the sensor light went out, plunging everything back into darkness. His heavy footsteps gradually faded, then disappeared completely. I remained frozen in place like a statue, not daring to move an inch. Then something hit me. My eyes widened, and I rushed back to the bedroom in a panic, turning off the desk lamp. The room was instantly swallowed by darkness. The silence was so absolute I could clearly hear my own ragged breathing and chaotic heartbeat. I crawled across the floor toward the window. I didn't dare pull the curtains open, I only parted them slightly, just enough to peek outside. Under the dim, yellow streetlight, a tall shadow was striding away quickly, soon swallowed whole by the thick night. At that point, the last bit of strength drained from my body. I collapsed onto the cold tiled floor. The overwhelming terror I had been holding back, mixed with the relief of narrowly escaping danger, broke me. I covered my face and burst into sobs. Even the 2 rats that had been gnawing nearby were startled. Their tiny bean-like eyes widened in confusion, as if exchanging silent questions. "Hey, isn't this girl supposed to be tough? The last time she cried was when she called her family. Normally she's as strong as a man, clearing filthy drains without a complaint, cutting her hand while scrubbing pots and still acting like nothing happened. Why is she suddenly such a crybaby today?" I took a deep breath and wiped away my tears with the back of my hand. My hands were still trembling as I unlocked my phone and immediately called the police. My voice was hoarse but firm. "Hello, emergency line 112? My neighbor next door. I think they've just been killed. It's 100% real, I heard everything. Please send someone immediately. I swear I'm not making a false report. I'm not drunk, and I'm not dreaming." A calm, professional voice on the other end instructed me to lock my door tightly and stay inside. officers would arrive within minutes. After hanging up, I curled into a corner, hugging my knees, trembling and waiting anxiously. The suffocating tension seemed to spread even to the two sewer rats. They lay completely still on the dull tiled floor beside me, no longer making a sound. The knocking, knock, 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 tore through the night. I tiptoed over, pressing my eye against the peephole. Flickers of flashlight beams revealed the familiar blue uniforms in the hallway. To be absolutely sure, I carefully called the emergency line 112 again to confirm it was really them before daring to unlock the door, my hands trembling. The apartment was pitch dark. I didn't dare turn on the lights. As the door creaked open, the first thing the two young officers saw wasn't my face, but the cold gleam of a solid steel wrench, as thick as a forearm, clutched tightly in my hand, along with my bloodshot eyes, stretched to their limit with fear. They both flinched, instinctively stepping back several paces, hands moving to their waists. "Miss, calm down, we're police, we're here to help. Put the weapon down. Assaulting law enforcement is a serious offense, you know." Seeing the pale expressions on their faces, I realized I might have overreacted. Embarrassed, I cleared my throat and hurriedly placed the heavy wrench on top of the shoe cabinet. Sorry, this is just for self-defense. There's been news all over the internet about some pervert attacking women living alone. I got scared. So besides locking 3 layers of doors, I have to hug this 79,000 VND sale wrench just to fall asleep. After my explanation, the officers finally relaxed, quickly wiping cold sweat from their foreheads. They asked which unit I had reported, and I timidly pointed them toward room 304 next door. The door was tightly shut. The landlord was off traveling in another province. Calling him was useless, he didn't pick up. With no other choice, the officers had to call in a professional locksmith from the nearby night market. The locksmith arrived, shining his flashlight and examining the lock carefully. After a while, he shook his head and whispered, "The lock's intact, no signs of forced entry. Most likely the killer had a proper key, or was highly skilled." With that, he took out his tools, fiddled with the lock for a few seconds. Click. The old iron door groaned open. A nauseating, metallic stench, like strawberry syrup gone rotten, hit all 4 of us straight in the face. Everyone's expression twisted instantly. One officer had barely stepped inside for less than half a minute before rushing back out, his face ashen. He grabbed his radio and shouted urgently for backup. The other one collapsed beside a trash bin in the hallway, retching violently. I stood frozen, my whole body turning cold. The nasty woman in room 304 was really gone. What I had heard from the rats was true. The locksmith, seeing the horrifying scene inside, went pale as a sheet. He scrambled to pack his tools, ready to bolt. Before running off, he turned back and stammered, "Oh my God, it's a murder. Miss, hurry back to your room and lock your door. Leave this to the police." Before he even finished, his short, stocky figure had already disappeared down the stairs, as if something was chasing him. Seeing the officers busy reporting the situation, with no attention left for me, I quietly slipped back into my apartment. I threw on a thick fleece hoodie, trying to shake off the cold seeping into my bones. As I stepped into the living room, I saw the 2 sewer rats struggling to drag a plastic bag of dried chicken with lime leaves toward the sofa. The moment they noticed me, they puffed up their fur and cautiously stepped back. Hey, you promised us, okay? Don't go back on your word. You're not like those humans who lace food with poison, right? Honestly, I found rodents disgusting like anyone else. But at this moment, watching these scruffy little creatures acting all nervous, and somehow understanding their speech, I couldn't help but find them oddly hilarious. Relax. I keep my word. I squatted down, tapping my finger lightly on the floor. But I've got something to ask you too. Of course, I won't make you work for free. Answer me, and tomorrow I'll buy you some premium sausages, guaranteed safe, no poison. The 2 rats twitched their noses, seemingly realizing that this poor human, though broke, wasn't that bad, at least not as vicious as the woman in 304, who used to curse all day and occasionally mix poison into leftover food to trap their kind. "Alright, what do you want to ask?" the bigger rat spoke up bravely. "But we're just rats, we only know so much. Our expertise is chewing through walls, not playing detective." "I know very well how extensive your intelligence network is," I said bluntly. "Let's get straight to the point. That big guy who just logged out the woman next door, have you two seen him hanging around here before? For him to break in at midnight without making noise, he must have been scouting this place for days." "We've seen him a lot, actually," the smaller rat jumped up. "That guy who smells like sour sweat mixed with something burnt, disgusting. He's been lurking around the hallway for the past few nights, scaring us so much we didn't even dare go out to look for food." Just as I thought, he had been preparing this for a while. I seized the opportunity. "Then do you remember what he looks like? Describe him in detail." "His face is sunken, kind of like a plow blade, really unpleasant looking. His eyebrows are broken and patchy." "Wait, give me a second." I sprang up and rushed to my desk, rummaging through the mess until I found an old, yellowed sketchbook and a worn-down pencil. Dragging a chair over, I sat right in front of the rats, propped the sketchbook on my lap, and said, "Keep going. What about his eyebrows?" The two rats curiously crawled closer, stretching their necks to stare at the blank page. As they chattered out descriptions, my pencil moved swiftly. Sharp lines began to take shape. A gaunt, blade-like face. Broken, uneven eyebrows. A hooked nose like a crow's beak. Thin, cracked lips. And most striking of all, a pair of slanted, pale eyes filled with killing intent. "Yes, that's him. Exactly him," the two rats jumped up excitedly. "Wow, big sis, that's amazing. How did you draw it so perfectly?" A proud smile curled on my lips. "Back in the day, I was the top entrance scorer in fine arts, you know. Ranked first or second in sculpture drawing in my class." Then my smile faded slightly. Too bad life had other plans. Art couldn't feed me, that's why I ended up in this rundown place. Shaking off the brief bitterness, I refocused and pressed for more details, moles, wrinkles, refining the portrait until it became chillingly lifelike. Just as I finished the final stroke, the killer's face seemed to stare back from the page, vivid enough to send a shiver down anyone's spine. Right then, heavy footsteps thundered down the hallway. The police must have arrived in force. The rat's whiskers trembled violently in fear. I waved my hand. "Someone's here. Grab the food and get back to your nest. Tomorrow I'll bring sausages, 3 knocks at your hole and you come out, got it?" The two rodents nodded rapidly, grabbed the plastic bag, and vanished into a crack in the wall. Taking a deep breath, I stepped out and opened the door. A group of officers was approaching. Leading them was a middle-aged man in plain clothes, carrying a worn leather briefcase under his arm. His eyes were sharp as blades, sweeping across the scene before settling on me. "You're the one who reported the case?" I nodded. Without wasting words, he tilted his head slightly and ordered the young female officer behind him. "Tu Lam, take the witness statement first." "Yes, Captain." The officer immediately took out her notebook. "The first 24 hours after a homicide are critical for catching the suspect. We can't afford delays." Before she could finish, I stepped forward decisively and handed over the sketch I had just torn from my notebook. "Captain, this is a portrait of the suspect. I drew it myself." Tun Hao froze. His eyes flickered between my calm face and the detailed sketch in his hand. "You saw the killer? And even managed to draw him from memory?" In my mind, I had already prepared a perfect explanation. The killer had been wearing a black mask when he left. If I claimed I could see through it, that would be too much. "No. I didn't," I said, keeping my voice steady, with just a hint of lingering fear. "He was masked when he ran away. I couldn't see his face clearly. But a few days ago, I saw this man wandering around this floor, sneaking around like he was scouting for a target. The female officer frowned, her gaze sharp with suspicion. Then how can you be sure he's the killer if you didn't clearly see his face? Another officer, Tam Na, pressed me with a piercing tone. I answered calmly, his build matches the figure I saw tonight. And a stranger lurking suspiciously around this rundown building for days, as a normal person, it's only natural for me to connect the dots. Tam Na was about to question further, but the captain raised his hand to stop her. Tu Tam, take this sketch and run it through the database immediately. After his subordinate left, Captain Tran turned to me, the corner of his lips curling into a faint, approving smile. Young lady, if we really catch that butcher thanks to your sketch, you'll be the #1 contributor to this case. I gave a faint smile and waved my hand. I don't care about credit, sir. I just want that piece of trash locked up as soon as possible. Think about it, I'm a woman living alone, and my bed is separated from the crime scene by just a thin wall. Who knows, I might have already been on his target list. Just the thought of those snake-like eyes watching me every night sends chills down my spine. Captain Tran sighed, his expression turning serious. This case is extremely complicated. Our manpower is stretched thin. We may need you to come to the station for further questioning. Once we're done, I'll have a car take you home. Cooperating with an investigation is a citizen's duty, right? I glanced at the time, almost 4 a.m. I still had to clock in at work that morning. The attendance bonus of 500 yuan this month was enough to cover my utilities. Seeing my hesitation, Captain Tran looked surprised. Perhaps he couldn't understand how someone who had just faced a murderer could still be worried about a few hundred yuan. It's just some additional questions, won't take long, he reassured me. If your boss gives you trouble, give me their number, I'll call personally. Forget it. Catching the killer mattered more. All right. I'll go with you. He gestured for someone to escort me. To be honest, it was my first time riding in a police vehicle. Quite an experience, though the air conditioning was so cold it seeped into my bones. Even with a thick hoodie, I couldn't stop shivering. To help stabilize me, a young female officer named Tu Chao sat beside me to take my statement. Despite her gentle appearance, she was extremely methodical. She questioned me thoroughly, my background, income, financial situation, debts, even minor conflicts with the victim next door. The more I listened, the deeper my frown grew. Officer, this is going a bit too far. This feels less like questioning a witness and more like interrogating a suspect. I didn't beat around the bush. Are you suspecting me? Tu Chao flinched slightly before answering. To be honest, in a crowded apartment like that, you were the only one who reported the case. My mind clicked instantly. She had a point. The soundproofing in that rundown building was terrible. If I could hear the struggle and those horrifying sounds, why hadn't anyone else? And what were the odds that I would open the door at that exact moment and encounter the suspect? Then calmly produce a near-perfect sketch? From their perspective, the sequence of events was almost too smooth, like a carefully scripted play. Only then did I realize that Captain Tran's polite invitation to the station might not have been as simple as assisting the investigation. I was standing right in the eye of the storm. Immediately, I raised my guard. For questions directly related to the case or basic personal information, I answered clearly and honestly. But whenever things got too personal, I simply smiled and said, I'm not comfortable sharing that. Or stayed completely silent. I'm a reporting witness, not a criminal. They couldn't just use interrogation tactics on me like that. Back and forth it went, pushing and pulling, until before I knew it, the sky had already brightened. Then, click. The interrogation room door opened. Captain Tran Kien Kwok walked in. His complexion was still healthy, his eyes sharp, nothing like someone who had been up all night working a case. Seeing me still there, he widened his eyes in exaggerated surprise. Oh? You're still here, Miss Ha? Why haven't you gone home to rest? He turned to Tu Chao, feigning annoyance. What kind of work is this? Didn't I say just take a basic statement and send her home immediately? Chiu Chow stood up straight, slightly nervous. Reporting, Captain, there were a few details that needed clarification, so it took longer. Oh, he clicked his tongue. All done now? Then take her home right away. Or, Miss Ha, would you like to stay and have a quick meal with us before leaving? This man is acting way too well. There was no way a captain wouldn't know his subordinate had been questioning someone for hours. If anything, that intense overnight interrogation was probably his instruction in the first place. No matter what, I wasn't staying here a second longer. I covered my mouth and let out a long, exaggerated yawn. No, thank you. I'm exhausted. My eyes can barely stay open. I just want to go home, bury my face in a pillow, and sleep. Seeing my determination, Captain Tran didn't insist further. He waved his hand, signaling Chiu Chow to escort me out. The moment the car rolled out of the station and disappeared beyond the gate, Captain Tran immediately turned to Tam Na, who was walking toward him. What about the sketch scan results? Tam Na frowned, her tone tense. Sir, we've checked the entire database, no matches at all. If that man with the blade-like face is really the killer, then this is likely his first offense. Completely clean record, no prior convictions. Captain Tran's expression remained unreadable. Unable to hold back, Tam Na added. Sir, I find that girl, Ha Mok, extremely suspicious. According to the preliminary autopsy by forensic Dr. Liu, the victim died approximately 2.5 hours before she called emergency services. If she really heard the sounds of the crime, why did she wait that long to report it? And if she didn't hear anything, then how did she know something happened next door, and open her door at the exact moment the killer walked out? Captain Tran pulled out a cigarette but didn't light it, just held it near his nose. Years of honed instinct told him there were only two possibilities. Either the girl was completely innocent, caught in an almost impossible chain of coincidences. Or she was a wolf in sheep's clothing, a highly intelligent sociopath with perfect camouflage. And the second type was far more dangerous. Print out the sketch. Ask around the neighborhood, see if anyone has seen this man before. He paused, then added. As for Ha Mok, assign 2 experienced officers to protect her 24/7. He deliberately emphasized the word protect. It was the perfect excuse for his superiors, and at the same time a net to monitor my every move. Meanwhile, sitting in the back seat of the police car, I nodded off, completely unaware that my name had just been added to the suspect list. Sleepiness washed over me. I pulled out my phone and quickly typed a message asking my boss for a day off. No reply, understandable. It was only 6:30 a.m. Normally, at this hour, the courtyard of this shabby apartment complex would already be lively with elderly residents exercising. But today, it was eerily silent. All the noise had gathered downstairs. Bright yellow police tape sealed off the entrance. My eyes were barely open, I just wanted to collapse onto my bed. Struggling, I squeezed through the curious crowd. Excuse me, please let me through. I live here, I need to get home. I thought that would work. Instead, the crowd suddenly surged toward me like they'd struck gold. Oh my goodness, girl, you live here? Did you see what happened last night? Someone shouted. I recognize her. She rents the unit right next to the victim. Immediately, an old man downstairs, Mr. Tun, snorted, holding a birdcage. That nasty woman had it coming. Karma finally got her. Someone tried to stop him. Come on, she's already dead. Stop what? He snapped, face flushed. The other day I brought my birds out to get some sun, and she started accusing me of spreading bird flu, threatening to report me. I've lived over 60 years and never seen someone younger than my granddaughter dare to point fingers and curse at me like that. His outburst ignited the crowd. Neighbors began competing to list the victim's faults, turning the scene into chaotic gossip. Trapped in the middle, sweat poured down my face. Luckily, a young officer, one of the ones from last night, recognized me. He quickly pushed through the crowd and pulled me past the police tape. Thank you so much, I exhaled, clutching my chest. He smiled gently. No problem. You should pack your things and stay somewhere else for a few days. I blinked, confused. Move out? No. I'm just going back to sleep. That won't interfere with your work, right? The officer froze. Slowly, he shook his head, but the look in his eyes was filled with disbelief. And honestly, it made sense. A brutal murder had just happened next door. The killer was still at large. Most residents had already packed up and fled. Yet I, the one sleeping just a wall away from the crime scene, was calmly going back to bed. I could read his thoughts just by looking into his eyes. And honestly, all I could do was scream internally. Sir, do you think I want to stay here? My wallet is completely empty. Where am I supposed to get money to rent a hotel right now? With no other choice, I nodded politely, adjusted my backpack, and prepared to head upstairs. But the moment I stepped onto the first stair, a sharp buzzing sound suddenly rang in my ear. Loud. Irritating. Almost cartoonishly exaggerated. Then came a smell. Sweet, overwhelmingly sweet. Like strawberry syrup. Where on earth was that coming from? A tiny winged shadow zipped past my face. The buzzing sound drifted upward toward the higher floors. Yet every word it said still echoed clearly in my ears. Hee hee, jackpot. Found it. My entire body froze. That strange, squeaky voice was coming from a green bottle fly perched on the wall. Last night, when I heard the rats talking, I tried to convince myself it was just exhaustion. That I was hallucinating. But now? Even the sound of a fly rubbing its legs together. I could understand every single word. There was no doubt anymore. I had awakened a superpower. So those ridiculous web novels I binge-read all night long weren't lying after all. A broke girl like me had finally been blessed by luck with a golden finger. Oh wow, this smells amazing. This strawberry syrup is so rich, so strong. The fly circled excitedly, rambling non-stop. After a few seconds of indulging in my fantasy, I suddenly snapped back to reality. Cold sweat broke out across my back. Wait a second. Outside, the area was sealed off. Just a bunch of elderly neighbors standing around, no food, no raw meat, nothing. So where exactly was this strong strawberry syrup smell coming from? And worse, the fly said the scent was coming from the apartment right next to mine. A chilling thought shot through my mind. Startled, I instinctively scanned the chaotic crowd. And then, my gaze locked onto a man wearing a worn-out baseball cap pulled low over his face. It seemed he noticed me staring. Without a word, he suddenly turned, shoved past a few women carrying groceries, and bolted straight toward the alley. That reaction. If it's not guilt, then what is? Without thinking, I immediately raised my arm, pointed at his back, and shouted at the top of my lungs. Officer! That man in the baseball cap. There's a high chance he's the killer, catch him. My voice hit the crowd like a spark thrown into oil. A young officer reacted instantly, turning toward me. Are you sure you saw the suspect? Which direction did he go? Deep down, I was only about 70% certain. But between missing a suspect and catching the wrong one, I chose to act. That alley. Hurry, he's getting away. The officer didn't hesitate for even a second. He quickly exchanged a few words with a tall man in plain clothes, likely the team leader. Immediately, a group of 3 officers drew their tasers and split into 2 directions, closing in as they chased after the man in the cap. The rest stayed behind, maintaining the security perimeter. The crowd of elderly neighbors, who had been gossiping moments ago, now turned pale with fear. Oh my God, the killer was standing right among us this whole time? While everyone else clutched their chests in panic, my own heart burned with urgency. Standing still and waiting for results? That's not my style. Last night, the rats had already sketched out his face for me. Today, I could make that winged little detective talk. Afraid the fly might disappear, I quickly searched my pockets. Luckily, a safety pin. For the sake of justice, I clenched my teeth and pricked my fingertip. A drop of deep red blood slowly formed. As I gently flicked my hand to spread the scent into the air, I whispered under my breath, "Hey, little guy, come here. I've got something fresh for you." Fortunately, everyone's attention was focused on the alley where the officers had just disappeared. No one noticed my strange, almost suspicious behavior. Buzz. Buzz. The familiar sound of wings approached. I quickly pressed my bleeding finger against a hidden corner of the wall. Ignoring the fact that flies carry countless bacteria that could infect me. For the sake of a life-changing reward, I endured it. The moment it caught the scent, the fly, about the size of a bean, landed instantly. And began feeding greedily. It even rubbed its front legs together in pure satisfaction. Not bad, pretty sweet. Owner eats pretty clean, but kinda skinny, huh? Probably doesn't get much fat in her diet. I rolled my eyes in annoyance. Unbelievable. Getting my blood sucked. And still getting judged for being poor. I leaned closer to the corner of the wall and whispered, "Hey, little guy, with just one drop of syrup, you already diagnosed me that accurately. That means you can understand what I'm saying, right?" The fly, still busy feeding, suddenly froze. Its wings stiffened. And it dropped flat onto its back, playing dead. So, my ability wasn't just about understanding their language. I could actually feel the panic rising inside their tiny brains. Oh, come on. Cut the act. I tapped my fingernail lightly against the wall as a warning. I'm not going to crush you. Just answer a few questions. I promise I'll treat you to a full meal, premium honey water. And even a piece of fermented durian peel. Deal? Faced with the deadly temptation of honey and fermented food, the tiny fly surrendered instantly. It flipped itself back over and clung tightly to the drop of syrup. Oh really? You swear? If you lie, may you never get seasoning packets with your instant noodles again. I swear, I said firmly, boosting my credibility. Now tell me. That man from earlier, when you were flying around him. Besides the syrup smell, was there anything else unusual? There was, but it was faint, the fly said. He scrubbed himself really clean with soap. Not nearly as rich and delicious as your strawberry syrup. Target confirmed. I went straight to the point. Think carefully. What was he wearing? What color was his jacket? Any logo on the cap? The fly rubbed its legs and spoke slowly. Dark moss green jacket, kinda worn out. Inside, an off-white hoodie. Cargo pants, gray, old, a bit torn, like he's been wearing them for years. The cap, faded gray. Plain. No logo. No design. I frowned. Too ordinary. The kind of outfit that disappears in any crowd. Hard to identify. Then where was the syrup smell strongest on him? I pressed. Left hand, the fly answered immediately. Strongest between the fingers. Even after washing, I could still smell it. Left hand? So when he attacked the victim next door, he likely used his dominant hand. This was valuable. But I needed something more. Then I noticed a man nearby smoking. An idea sparked instantly. Hey, besides the syrup, did he smell like smoke? Yes, the fly nodded. His left hand and breath, strong smell of burnt smoke. His index and middle fingers were yellow. From our family's experience, the fly added proudly. That kind of deep smell means at least 25 years of smoking. My eyes lit up. 25 years? If he started young, say, in high school, then he must be around 45 to 55 years old now. combined with the bulky build the rats described last night. The suspect pool had just narrowed significantly. Wait, the fly hesitated. There's one more smell on him. Something very strange. My heart started pounding. I held my breath. This could be the breakthrough. What smell? Smack. A sharp, dry crack exploded right next to my ear. The buzzing stopped instantly. The fly's voice, cut off forever. A rolled-up newspaper had come out of nowhere and smashed directly into the wall. The last witness was now nothing but a black smear sliding down the bricks. My most valuable clue. Gone. Just like that. Rage shot straight to my head. I clenched my fists and turned around, ready to explode. Which idiot just? The words died in my throat. Because the moment I saw his face, I forced a smile. Oh. Second uncle, what are you doing here? Levi Howe. A distant relative of my mother's. And a seasoned criminal investigator. He nodded at me, still holding the rolled-up newspaper. His gaze fixed coldly on the flattened fly. Hamak, what exactly were you doing? He asked. Staring at a fly like you were trying to kill it with your eyes? He smirked, speaking like a veteran teaching a rookie. If you're gonna sweat them, do it fast, when they're off guard. Standing there glaring like that? One day it'll poop on your head and fly off. I clenched my jaw. If only he knew. That decisive strike of his just killed my best witness. Silently, I offered 3 imaginary incense sticks for the fallen detective fly. Then forced a polite smile. Yes, sir. I'll learn from this next time. See it, smack it. No need to think. Levi Howe rolled the newspaper back up, his gaze sharp as a blade. He scanned across the yellow police tape, then tilted his chin up, looking at the rundown apartment building I lived in. His thick brows furrowed. You're the one who reported the case last night, right? Why is a girl like you living alone in a place like this? No security, no protection. You know how dangerous this area is. Why don't you move back home? We called him uncle, but honestly, between his job and the generation gap, we barely knew each other. I could count the number of times we'd met on one hand. The last one was years ago, at my grandparents' memorial. Family issues, conflicts with my mom. I wouldn't even tell my best friend, let alone some distant relative. So I shrugged, giving the usual excuse young people use. I just rent here because it's close to work. No need to deal with traffic every morning. Independence, he snapped. In a place where life is this fragile? There's a serial killer targeting women who live alone. This is dangerous. Listen to me. Today, pack up and move. At least find a proper apartment with security. Don't stay here anymore. I knew he was genuinely worried. But my wallet? On strike. Moving means deposit, transport, new rent. Money I simply didn't have. So even though it hurt inside, I nodded obediently. Yes. I'll arrange it. He was about to lecture me more when the officers who had chased the man in the cap came back. Empty-handed. A tall young officer, breathing heavily, reported. Team leader Lou, sorry. We lost him. He knows that alley like the back of his hand. Moves like a ghost. We only saw a shadow, then he vanished into the slum behind. His name tag read, Tun Hugh Duck. All right. Learn from it, Levi Howe said calmly. Then suddenly, he turned toward me. This is Hamak. She was the one who spotted the suspect. Hugh Duck, ask her if she remembers anything distinctive. The young officer stepped closer. I took a deep breath. Replayed every piece of information the fly detective had given me. And spoke in one smooth stream. He was wearing a dark moss green jacket. Inside, an off-white hoodie. Gray cargo pants, old, worn. And a plain gray baseball cap. No logo. the moment I finished. Tun Hu Duk. Levi Ho. Even the officers nearby. All froze. Their expressions shifted from surprise to suspicion. You only saw him for a second in that chaos, Tun Hu Duk said slowly. And you remember details like that? I ignored the look in his eyes and added one more line. When he passed me, I smelled strong cigarette smoke. Heavy. Burnt. Stuck to his body. That's not a beginner smoker. If I had to guess, at least 25 years. So his age should be around 45 to 55. This time, the air around me froze. The way they looked at me changed completely. No longer just surprise. Now, there was caution. Suspicion. Even a hint of unease. Hamak, Tun Hu Duk said, his voice low and sharp, eyes piercing into mine. You saw him for less than 3 seconds. Yet you analyzed his clothes, estimated his age. And even his smoking history? If your observation skills are really that sharp. Then why last night? Didn't you report the case immediately? Why wait hours? His gaze felt like it was peeling my thoughts apart. But I was used to this kind of interrogation. On the outside, I stayed calm. Blinking innocently, I said. Officer Tun, it's just intuition. I've always had a sensitive sense of smell. My father has been a heavy smoker for nearly 30 years. I recognize that scent instantly. As for whether this helps your investigation, that's up to you. I'm just sharing what I think might be useful. My explanation sounded smooth. But clearly, Tun Hu Duk wasn't convinced. He'd only been on the job for less than 2 years. Still too green to decide whether someone like me was a helpful witness or something else entirely. He excused himself, turned away, and stepped into a quiet corner to make a call. Even though he lowered his voice as much as possible, I could still vaguely guess who was on the other end. Captain Tran Kien Kwok. Sensing the tension in the air, my uncle Levi Ho pulled me aside and lowered his voice. Hamak, tell me the truth. Are you really sure that man in the cap is the suspect? And how did you manage to estimate 25 years of smoking, from just a glance? He might be family. But I knew very well. In his world, the law always came before blood. Protecting me was one thing. Protecting thousands of civilians by solving the case, that mattered more. I couldn't rule out the possibility that he was testing me on behalf of the task force. I looked him straight in the eyes. I'm not bored enough to mess with the police, I said clearly. I'm telling the truth. He opened his mouth to press further. But Tun Hu Duk had already returned. The young detective now wore a perfectly polished, professional smile. Ms. Hamak, he said, clearing his throat. Would you mind coming back to the station with us? The task force needs your help reviewing security footage to confirm the suspect's escape route. My blood pressure almost spiked. Back to the station? Again? I frowned. I just got back here less than an hour ago. Don't witnesses get to sleep? My apologies for the inconvenience, he said sincerely. We know you're tired. But the situation is urgent. Inside, I was screaming from exhaustion. But logically, I had no choice. Think about it. I was the one who discovered the case. I helped sketch the killer. And just now, I pointed him out in broad daylight. If that man really was the murderer, then his next target would be me. To stay alive, I had to cooperate fully with the police and get him caught as soon as possible. But cooperation didn't mean being treated like a tool. I had to show a little resistance. I sighed dramatically, acting reluctant. Fine, if it helps you solve the case faster. I guess I'll sacrifice my sleep. Tun Hu Duk's smile brightened instantly. Thank you for your cooperation, Ms. Ha. Your sharp instincts could be the key to cracking this case. A golden key, huh? Smooth talker. Lu Weihao originally planned to escort me himself. But his radio suddenly buzzed with a new case. Duty called. He gave me a few quick reminders, told his colleagues to keep an eye on me, and rushed off. The police vehicle started moving again. On the ride, Tun Hu Duk casually struck up a conversation. So, you and team leader Lu are related? He seemed pretty protective of you. More or less, I replied flatly. He's a distant relative on my mom's side. That was all the opening he needed. Tun Hu Duk immediately launched into praise. Lu Weihao is a nightmare for criminals. Brave, sharp, put countless dangerous offenders behind bars. Then suddenly, he shifted tone. It's just a shame. He's a bit too rigid. In his world, everything is black and white. Right or wrong. The law comes first. Always. He never makes exceptions, for anyone. My ears perked up instantly. I could easily read between the lines. This was a two-in-one move. On one hand, a warning. If I was hiding anything, even Lu Weihao wouldn't protect me. On the other, he was testing my reaction. I smiled faintly. Then asked directly. Officer Tun. Did Captain Tran tell you to say that? He paused. Just for a split second. His smile stiffened slightly. Of course not, he waved it off quickly. I was just making conversation. Don't take it the wrong way. I replied blandly. Then turned to the window. Ending the conversation right there. Through the reflection on the glass, I saw sweat beading on Tun Hu Duk's forehead. I was sure he was cursing inwardly, no mistake about it. This girl looks innocent as hell, but her operating system is razor sharp. There's no way to shake her. As soon as the car pulled up in front of the headquarters, Tun Hu Duk immediately led me straight into the security camera control room. His colleagues were already stationed there, eyes strained as they rewound footage around the time of the incident to filter out suspects. Ms. Ha, take a close look, could it be this guy? One officer said, pointing to a corner of the screen. On the monitor was a shadowy figure captured from above, a deadly camera angle that completely obscured his face. The man had his cap pulled low over his nose and seemed to know the exact positions of the surveillance cameras. He moved in an eerily calculated way, always sticking to blind spots. But based on the escape timeline and the standard outfit, faded moss green shirt, gray cargo pants, I slapped my thigh. That's him. 100%. Tun Hu Duk nodded sharply, signaling his colleagues to continue. Every time the gray shadow disappeared from one frame, they immediately switched to another camera at nearby intersections. After about 10 minutes, just as the figure turned into a dark alley, the video abruptly cut off. That's a blind spot. No cameras installed there, completely lost track, an officer clicked his tongue. Tun Hu Duk frowned. What about the cameras in the surrounding alleys? Have you extracted everything? We're working on it, boss. So far we've only ruled out one escape route. The rest will take quite a while to go through. He then pulled out 2 red plastic stools from somewhere and shoved one into my hands. Let's review it together, Ms. Ha, for objectivity. I was speechless. Silently, I sat down. I didn't even get the chance to refuse. Watching security footage is truly a form of mental torture, especially when you don't know the exact escape time. Each alley requires at least an hour of intense focus. Even at double speed, it still eats up a huge amount of time, and your eyes can't leave the screen for even half a second for fear of missing something. After a few hours, drowsiness hit me like a heavy rock pressing on my eyelids. I couldn't even sit anymore. I leaned against a cabinet to keep watching. I had to chug 2 cans of energy drink, crushed the cans flat afterward, just to barely stay awake. Hours dragged on, and the result was still a big, fat 0. Not a single matching image was found. Frustrated, Tun Hu Duk scratched his head. damn it, did that guy grow wings and vanish into thin air? A dark-circled officer beside him muttered, maybe he lives in the area. Committed the crime and slipped straight home to sleep. Surveillance wouldn't catch that. Someone immediately countered, our team already went door to door. We even brought a sketch and asked around if anyone had seen a guy dressed like that. Forget people, no one even saw a shadow. As soon as those words fell, all eyes in the room turned toward me like daggers. The air thickened, suffocating. Someone else might have crumbled under that pressure, but sorry, after being trained under that bald, pot-bellied boss with iron discipline, a bit of psychological pressure like this was nothing new to me. I straightened my back, voice firm. I swear on my honor, I definitely encountered someone who looked exactly like that. The dark-eyed officer, seemingly pushed to his limit after staying up all night, pressed me harder. But the cameras didn't capture him. The neighbors haven't seen him. By what miracle are you the only person in the world who's seen a man dressed like that? That kind of psychological tactic might work on weak-willed criminals, but he picked the wrong target. My expression didn't change as I replied coldly, I provided the sketch, handed over every clue. I've even sacrificed my sleep to sit here and review footage with you. And now that you can't find anything, you turn around and interrogate me like I'm the suspect? He was about to snap back when a deep, authoritative voice thundered from the doorway. What kind of nonsense is this? Gathering here just to gossip? Is this what taxpayers' money is paying you for, this kind of sluggish incompetence? At that shout, everyone in the room, whether sitting or leaning, jerked in shock. Faces turned pale as they hurried back to their stations. I lowered my gaze, staring at the bridge of my nose, a faint sneer tugging at my lips. As expected, it was Captain Tran Kien Kwok. Playing both the enforcer and the protector, shielding his men, and putting on quite the convincing performance. I stood up decisively. I've done everything I needed to do. May I go home now, Captain? Captain Tran stepped forward, his expression instantly softening into a warm, kindly smile. Mok, I heard everything from outside. We're truly grateful for the information you've provided. The details you gave are extremely valuable to the task force. Once the case is closed, I will personally make sure you receive a commendation as a model citizen. I blinked, cutting straight to what really mattered in life. Will there be a cash reward included? Captain Tran froze for 3 seconds, clearly not expecting me to be that practical. He cleared his throat. Well, for last night's case alone, there's no reward fund. However, we've now merged it into an ongoing serial murder investigation. If your lead proves decisive in helping us capture the perpetrator. He paused for emphasis. You would be eligible for a bonus of up to 350 million VND, directly funded by the city. The moment I heard 350 million, my previously calm expression completely shattered. My eyes widened, and my voice started stumbling over itself. Why, you said what? 350 million, for me? It was probably the first time Captain Tran had seen such a genuine and intense emotional reaction from me. He seemed slightly amused, the corner of his lips twitching as he nodded. That's right. 350 million. But the key condition is that your lead must directly result in the suspect being arrested. I tried to suppress the excitement dancing wildly inside me and cleared my throat to confirm, so as long as my clue helps you catch the killer, I'll get the reward, right? Seeing my eyes light up like car headlights, Captain Tran suddenly turned serious. He stepped closer, his tone becoming sincere, laced with concern. Mok, this serial killer is no ordinary criminal. He's extremely brutal, calculating, and has never left a single survivor. You're still young, you have a long future ahead of you. There are plenty of ways to make money. Don't risk your life over a reward. I understand. Don't worry, Captain, I'll put my safety first, I nodded repeatedly. But in my mind, the mental abacus was already clicking away. Other people had to track criminals, follow them, risk their lives for clues. But me? I just needed to sit still and toss out a few roast ducks to bribe my network of four-legged informants. 350 million. That was more than enough to pay off my cursed student loan, move out of this shabby neighborhood into a high-end apartment with 24/7 security, and still have money left to quit my job, slam my resignation letter right into that bald, pot-bellied boss's face, and finally start doing what I actually loved. For the first time in my life, I wouldn't have to sell myself out for scraps anymore. After a few seconds of planning, I spoke up decisively again. So, can I go home now? Captain Tran nodded and immediately called Tun Hu Duk to prepare a car to take me back. Before I stepped out, he deliberately slipped a business card into my hand and gave one last reminder. Remember, if you find any leads, call me immediately. Do not act on your own. Your life comes first. I carefully tucked the card into my coat pocket. Thank you, Captain. Once again, I got into the police vehicle. Maybe I'd gotten used to the cold, sterile atmosphere inside. This time, I didn't even shiver. I simply closed my eyes and rested. The car stopped at the entrance of my apartment block. Before heading upstairs, I stopped by a convenience store and bought a big jar of wild honey, a few packs of butter cookies, then swung by a roast duck shop and bought an entire Peking duck, the kind so fragrant it made your nose itch, something I'd normally never dare to splurge on. As soon as I reached the corridor on my floor, I spotted two plainclothes officers standing guard in front of apartment 304. I pretended not to notice them. Keeping my head down, I took out my key, unlocked the door, and slipped inside as if nothing was wrong. The moment I shut the door, I was still racking my brain, trying to figure out how to locate the two living witnesses from last night. When a familiar voice suddenly rang out from under the sofa. They've been lying in wait here forever. Good grief, miss, you finally decided to show your face. What did you buy? We thought you'd ditched us. The familiar grumbling voice of the big rat. Sis, are you okay? Why were you gone so long? Another timid, soft voice followed. I burst out laughing. These two rats had completely opposite personalities. The big, black sewer rat was sharp and street-smart, always practical, always putting benefits first. Meanwhile, the tiny light gray mouse was naive, almost adorably so. It seemed to genuinely admire my portrait drawing skills, not only calling me sis in a softer tone, but even showing concern for me. I placed the bag of food on the glass table, reached in, and tore off two greasy, glistening duck legs, setting them neatly on the tiled floor in front of them. Go on, eat. Fill your stomachs first. The black rat didn't stand on ceremony, he immediately lunged for the bigger leg, clutching it tightly as he gnawed away noisily. The gray mouse, on the other hand, carefully pressed its tiny front paws together and murmured, Thank you, miss. The black rat, mouth full, shot him an annoyed glare. You idiot. What are you thanking her for? This is payment, we earned it. The gray mouse drooped its ears, mumbling pitifully, but we didn't actually do anything for her today. Seeing the black rat about to scold him again, I quickly stepped in. All right, no need to thank me or argue over it. You deserve it. It just came out of the oven anyway, eat it while it's hot, or it won't taste as good. At my words, the black rat suddenly paused mid-chew. His tiny bean-like eyes narrowed as he stared at me. You're not planning to make us work for free, are you? What are you scheming? Clever little thing. I nodded, getting straight to the point. You're smart. I want to catch that killer. Later, you two will lead me around, we'll check with your network of friends along the way. In broad daylight, in a crowded city like this, it's nearly impossible to spot rodents unless you're near garbage dumps or sewer covers. But with these two locals, it was different, they definitely knew where their kind were hiding. The moment the gray mouse heard we were going after that dangerous man, it froze in terror. Its mouth fell open, dropping the piece of duck it had been nibbling. Sis, that guy is really dangerous. Don't go, please don't go, it stammered, trembling all over, spinning in place in panic. Annoyed, the black rat flicked its paw and lightly smacked the smaller one on the head. Stand still. You're making me dizzy, you coward. The gray mouse shrank back but still clung to the black rat's fur with its tiny paws, whimpering, "Boss, can we please convince her not to go? I don't want her head to end up smashed like that lady next door, strawberry jam everywhere." One street smart, one hopelessly innocent, these two scruffy little furballs somehow felt oddly endearing. I crouched down and patiently explained, "Little Gray, don't worry. I'm not going to fight him head-on. I just need to find the blind spots the security cameras can't cover, figure out which direction he escaped. Once I have that, I'll report it to the police. I won't put you two in danger." As I said that last sentence, I deliberately glanced at the black rat. He was frowning, clearly weighing the risks. He understood how dangerous the killer was, but at the same time, he couldn't resist the lure of good food. And perhaps, he respected my calm, straightforward attitude just a little. Seeing his hesitation, the gray mouse quickly added, "Boss, earlier, that dangerous guy, he was still wandering around outside. He stood under the street and kept staring up at her window. If we don't catch him, she won't be safe. We should help her." Those words hit me like a bolt of lightning. I froze, then asked sharply, "What did you just say? He was still around here? Staring at my window?" The gray mouse nodded obediently. "Why yes, my uncle passed by and saw him clearly." Cold sweat broke out down my back. He hadn't left. He had already set his sights on me. Worse, he might be lurking in the shadows right now, waiting for a chance to eliminate me. After a few seconds of shock, the fear inside me was gradually replaced by a fierce resolve. Instead of sitting at home trembling and waiting to die, I had to act first. I had to drag him out into the open as soon as possible. This time, it wasn't just about the 350 million anymore. It was about my life. Only by putting him behind bars could I sleep peacefully. The black rat looked up at me. Maybe he was affected by the determination, and the killing intent, in my eyes. Or maybe he simply wanted to restore peace to his sewer ecosystem that the murderer had disrupted. He cleared his throat and spoke, bargaining as expected. "We can help you, but one duck leg isn't nearly enough. At the very least, payment should be one whole roast duck. No, two. One for the gray one for me. That makes 2 roast ducks total." At his asking price, the corner of my lips curled into a proud smile. 2 roast ducks? That was nothing. As long as I could catch that guy and pocket the full 350 million VND reward, forget 2, I'd buy 100 roast ducks and roll out a red carpet feast for the entire rat clan until they couldn't eat another bite. While the 2 rats were busy devouring their duck legs, I fixed myself a quick bowl of egg noodles. The rest of the roast duck, I didn't touch at all, it had to be saved as my diplomatic weapon. After eating, I pulled out a large canvas tote bag I'd bought back in college. It had been washed so many times the color had faded, but I'd never had the heart to throw it away. Who would have thought it'd come in handy now? I tore open a few packs of cookies and tossed them into the bottom of the bag, then gently scooped up my 2 informants and placed them inside. "Stay put in there and eat your cookies. Don't stick your heads out unless I call you, and absolutely no tails poking out, got it?" After this morning's green fly incident, I wasn't about to let anyone notice anything strange about me again. People might dislike flies, but they hate rats 10 times more. A fly buzzing past might just get waved away, but a rat running across the street? That's a guaranteed broom or brick to the head. Not used to being out in broad daylight, the rats seemed a bit nervous. The only way they coped was by stress-eating cookies non-stop. As I walked, I could hear the constant crunching sounds coming from inside the bag. Luckily, the streets were noisy enough that no one paid attention to my talking bag. Relying on my memory, I made my way back to the alley where the butcher had vanished. This was part of the old district. Rumor had it the city had planned redevelopment projects here several times, but complications kept stalling everything. The result? Crumbling houses, mostly occupied by elderly residents living alone, with the occasional out-of-towner renting cheaply. I stood there observing for a moment. The alley was narrow, barely wide enough for a motorbike. Most houses had their doors shut tight, some even abandoned. Could that killer have broken into one of those empty houses? Even now, just me, a stranger standing around with a bag, was enough to draw suspicious stares from the old folks nearby. So how could a strange man, fully covered with a cap, rush in here without anyone noticing? The police had already canvassed the area. If I asked again, I wouldn't get anything new. Looks like my hopes of solving this case, and getting that reward, now rested entirely on the Rat Clan. I tapped the bag lightly. All right, your time to shine. The black rat poked his head out, scanning the surroundings. Suddenly, he blurted out in surprise, "Huh? Why'd you bring us to my uncle's territory? What a coincidence." I quickly crouched down, using my body to shield them from view, and urged excitedly, "Then go ask your uncle. Don't worry, I won't make him work for free." As I spoke, I deliberately opened the bag slightly, revealing a whole, glistening roast duck inside. The black rat nodded instantly. Turning to the gray one, he ordered, "Stay here and behave. My uncle hates strangers in his territory." Then he dashed off, slipping into a crack in the wall and disappearing in seconds. While waiting, I turned curiously to the gray mouse. "Hey, what's your relationship with him?" The little mouse stroked its whiskers, voice trembling with emotion. "Big brother saved my life. My mom got hit by a slingshot and died. My siblings all starved. I was the only one left, barely hanging on. He found me, shared his food, raised me. I'll never forget his kindness for as long as I live." That actually hit me a bit. "So, you two are a male and a female?" I asked. The gray mouse blinked. "No, we're both male." I almost choked on my own saliva. I thought it was some cliché domineering CEO saves innocent girl trope, turns out it's bromance in the sewers. My adaptability is seriously next level. Just yesterday I was scared rats would chew up my stuff, today I'm arranging snacks for them like honored guests. While I was lost in thought, the black rat suddenly returned, dragging along a massive dark shape behind him. Good lord. This rat was twice the size of the black one, fat, bulky, almost the size of a kitten. Even though I'd gotten used to talking to rats, seeing something this huge still sent chills down my spine. My eyes widened, goosebumps prickling all over. The gray mouse lit up at the sight, about to greet him. But before he could speak, the giant rat let out a piercing screech. "You traitor! You dare collude with humans? Have you forgotten how our kin were slaughtered by them? I should crush your skull right now." Without another word, the massive rat lunged at the black one, baring its long incisors and attacking viciously. The gray mouse screamed in terror and rushed forward to stop them. "Let go of Big Brother. Don't bite him." The black rat didn't seem to dare fight back. It just rolled around dodging blows, chattering nonstop in explanation. "Cousin, listen to me first. This person has never harmed our kind. She even feeds us and gives us water. Just let her ask a few questions before you decide. Little Gray, back off, be careful he doesn't bite you by mistake." I squatted there, watching the three rats tussle noisily, completely speechless. The scene was both absurd and strangely comical. I wanted to step in and break it up, but I was afraid of getting bitten and catching some disease. In the end, I used my bag and the hem of my shirt as a barrier, blocking the view, just in case someone passed by and saw me sitting there watching rats fight, then called a van to haul me straight to a mental hospital. Only when the fur on the black rat's back had been torn out, exposing patches of bald skin, did the big rat finally let go. It spat twice in disgust, sneering at the smell clinging to the fur. "Reeking of humans, disgusting. I can't stand it." The black rat, hurt and annoyed, snapped back, "You're just jealous. This is clearly the rich, fragrant smell of roast duck fat, how can you call it disgusting?" The gray rat, seeing its boss injured, teared up and chimed in, "That's right. She just gave us duck legs and cookies. She even brought a whole duck to offer Uncle." At the mention of roast duck, the big rat froze, suddenly speechless. The black rat seized the chance to explain to me, aggrieved. Miss, that's not my uncle, that's my cousin. My real uncle accidentally ate poisoned food and was taken out by humans. I let out a long breath, finally understanding why this big guy held such deep hatred toward humans. Without hesitation, I reached into my bag, tore off a piece of roast duck breast, and tossed it over. I didn't dare throw it too close, but just enough for the fat cousin to stretch his neck and grab it. Taking a deep breath, I got straight to the point. My name is Hamak. I can understand you. I'm tracking a killer. If you provide clues, I'll reward you, roast duck, cookies, whatever you want. The big rat rolled its eyes and turned to the black rat. This human really understands us? The black rat scratched its messy fur. Why would I lie to you? The big rat snorted disdainfully. It's a human. Who'd care about a few scraps of duck and some lousy cookies? If you want my help, name a proper price. I quickly asked, then what do you want? Its whiskers twitched. It lifted its chin arrogantly. I want a pig's head. Boiled. No chili. The black rat exploded. How the hell are you going to finish a whole pig's head? The big rat snapped back. I'll take a bite and toss the rest. What's it to you, you busybody? The black rat huffed and whispered to me, ignore him, sis. There are plenty of rats around here, we can ask someone else. Hearing that, the big rat puffed up proudly. This is my territory. Without my say-so, no rat here will dare tell you anything. Seeing the black rat deflate in frustration, I immediately agreed. Fine. If this works out, I'll get you a whole boiled pig's head. No chili. Only then did the big rat look satisfied. So, who are you looking for? I took out the sketch I had just finished before leaving home and spread it on the ground, describing the man's clothing from last night. He killed someone. He must reek of strawberry syrup. He escaped quickly, so he likely knows this area well. There's a good chance he passed through here. The big rat stared at the drawing for a moment, said nothing, then suddenly turned and ran off. The black rat quickly explained. Don't worry, sis. My cousin's gone to mobilize his crew. While waiting, the gray rat stretched out its tiny front paws and gently touched the bald patch on the black rat's head. Boss, does it hurt? The black rat looked a little embarrassed and pushed it away. It's just a scratch. He's my cousin, he wouldn't bite me to death. The gray rat sighed deeply. Still, biting another rat is wrong. The black rat tried to look tough, but its eyes softened with emotion at the concern. Watching them, I couldn't help but internally ship this ridiculous underground romance, munching on 2 cookies while I waited. I smiled faintly. Don't linger too long in a narrow alley. Sure enough, an old woman returning from the market stopped, eyeing me curiously and asking what I was doing. I quickly tucked my legs in, hiding the 2 furry cotton balls behind me, and flashed a bright smile. I'm an art student, doing field sketches of old street architecture. To make it convincing, I pulled out a few old still life sketches from my student days and showed her. The old lady nodded approvingly, praised me repeatedly, and finally left, returning the alley to its quiet. Sure enough, the big rat's word carried weight in this area. In less than 10 minutes, it came back driving 2 tiny rats toward me. I hurriedly squatted down and pushed the sketch forward, but the 2 unfamiliar rats were terrified. The moment they saw me, they scrambled behind the big rat, trembling uncontrollably. The big rat snapped irritably, "What are you scared of? She's not going to eat you." One of the tiny rats stammered, but my aunt said humans in the South catch rats for drinking snacks. The big rat bared its teeth and roared, "If you don't talk, I'll bite your neck off first." Terrified out of their wits, the 2 little rats scrambled forward and stared at the sketch. Immediately, they nodded frantically. Yes. It's him. We saw him rush through this alley last night. His face was full of killing intent, scared us half to death. My aunt said only someone who's just sent many people to their deaths would give off that kind of cold, murderous aura. Hearing this, I suddenly realized my fatal mistake. I had been focused on asking whether anyone saw the suspect wandering around during the day, but I forgot that night is the perfect cloak. Right after committing a crime, the killer would be at the peak of excitement, their guard lowered. He might even have taken off his mask, that's why the rats saw his face clearly. Moreover, late night is prime time for rats. This rice-powered surveillance network must have recorded his entire route. I quickly asked, after leaving the alley, which direction did he go? Did he stop anywhere? The two little rats hesitated and glanced at the big rat. Only after it gave a firm nod did they start talking over each other. He turned right and walked super fast. He dropped a hard plastic card, then hurriedly picked it up and ran off. Before I could say anything else, the big rat puffed up and declared, "All right. I'll personally lead you across my cousin's territory to keep investigating." I stared at it in surprise. I thought this guy only ruled this tiny corner, but turns out he had connections, and a strong sense of responsibility too. Generous indeed. I immediately took out more roast duck and cookies as a reward. The two little rats drooled, but still glanced at the big rat for approval. Only after it jerked its chin did they dare rush in and devour the food. "You," the big rat pointed, "go scout later. And you, take these cookies back to the nest." The division of labor was clear. Rat-A swallowed a mouthful of duck, nodded, and said, "Miss, follow me." Then it dashed off. I grabbed my bag and hurried after it, panting as I stumbled from one alley to another. From one cousin's turf to another relative's zone, each new guide passing me along like a relay race with no end in sight. And every time I switched guides, I had to bribe them with roast duck and cookies. Before long, more than half my food supply was gone. Finally, we reached the last stop. "Miss," after leaving the park, he turned right, crossed that traffic light, and reached the main road. That's as far as we tracked him. After that, he vanished. The final guide reported while chewing. I tore off another piece of duck and handed it over in thanks. It grabbed the reward and disappeared in a flash. The errand runners dispersed. Now only the black rat and gray rat curled up inside my cloth bag, and the big rat stood proudly at my feet. The big rat stroked its whiskers and clicked its tongue. That area to the right of the intersection is tricky. The sewers are sealed, so there are barely any rats. I don't know any gangs there either. And it's daytime, finding someone who's seen that guy is harder than climbing to the sky. I nodded in understanding. "It's okay. You've already helped me a lot. Once this is over, I promise I'll get you a whole boiled pig's head, no chili." The big rat narrowed its tiny eyes and glared at me. "Remember your promise. If you go back on your word, I'll bring 500 brothers and raid your fridge clean." From inside the bag, the gray rat timidly poked its little head out, about to remind its cousin that I was dirt poor and my fridge was basically empty, but remembering how much I hated being called poor, it quietly tucked its head back in and kept munching cookies. "Mon, in just 2 days I've eaten a lifetime's worth of cookies," it mumbled between bites. After seeing the big rat off, I looked up at the security camera hanging from the pole across the street. The rice-powered intelligence network had done its part. The rest would have to rely on technology. I pulled out my phone and dialed the number on Captain Tran's business card. "Captain, I have an extremely important lead." About 45 minutes later, I was once again sitting comfortably in the police station's reception room. In less than 24 hours, I had been here 3 times, more than all my visits in the past 24 years combined. Captain Tran Kian Kwok smiled expectantly. "Huh, Mok, that was fast. Already got something? Did you suddenly remember any new details about the suspect? Was I really supposed to tell them I could communicate with sewer rats?" If I said that out loud, forget catching the killer, there was a high chance I'd be dragged straight into a psychiatric hospital. Of course, I had already gritted my teeth and prepared a perfect script. "Yes, sir," I put on a thoughtful expression. After going home, I couldn't stop thinking about it. If that man was skilled enough to avoid all the cameras and slip past you, then it's likely that right after committing the crime last night, he escaped along that exact same route. Captain Tran's eyes lit up. I didn't expect you to have such logical thinking. Your investigative instincts are impressive. I gave a small nod and continued acting. So I took a risk and went back along that alley. Relying on my sense of smell, I picked up a faint trace of strawberry syrup he left behind. From that, I boldly sketched out the most likely escape route. Honestly, even to me, that explanation sounded ridiculously far-fetched. But I deliberately emphasized that it was just a personal intuition, not solid evidence. Keep it vague, those who believe will believe, and those who don't will subconsciously fill in the gaps themselves. Deep down, the captain was probably screaming. 1 second he was praising me for sharp analysis, the next I'd switched to some mystical nonsense, sniffing the air and mapping out an escape route? Was I messing with the law? Ignoring his doubtful gaze, I calmly pulled out an A4 sheet. This is the map. I had stopped by a small shop to buy paper and a pen, then sketched it while chasing after the rats. The lines were simple, but every alley name and traffic light was carefully marked. Captain Tran took the paper. His expression twitched, clearly conflicted. Hard to believe, but the map was undeniably professional. Muck, are you sure about this? He asked. I answered firmly. Just send people to review all the surveillance cameras along this route during the time the suspect fled. You'll definitely find something. His eyes turned serious. He studied me carefully, a young girl who looked no older than his own daughter, with nothing about her suggesting a connection to criminal investigation. Yet the arguments I presented were sharp and precise, like those of a seasoned detective. All right. I'll send. Before he could finish, hurried footsteps echoed down the hallway. A group of people pushed the door open and entered. Captain Tran's expression changed instantly. He stood up straight and spoke respectfully. Deputy Director Pham, you're here. The newcomer was a middle-aged man with a solid build, about 6 or 7 years older than Captain Tran. His face was cold and expressionless. He gave a slight nod and got straight to the point. I heard you've obtained a breakthrough lead. Captain Tran glanced at me with a complicated look, then immediately reported. Reporting, sir. I'm about to deploy a team to retrieve surveillance footage along this suspected route. We should have results soon. It turned out the man, Pham Hui, was the deputy director of the city's criminal police department. He had been sent down personally to oversee the case. His rank was higher than Captain Tran's, his words carried far more weight. He picked up my hand-drawn map and studied it in silence for a long moment. Though his face revealed nothing, the pressure he exuded made everyone in the room feel suffocated. The atmosphere tightened like a drawn bowstring. No one dared breathe too loudly, as if awaiting a final verdict from a judge. Captain Tran, Pham Hui suddenly spoke, his voice low and heavy. You've been in this line of work for nearly 30 years, haven't you? He paused, then added coldly. And yet you're handling things this recklessly, relying on something so subjective? Relying on a few bits of baseless information like this, aren't you just throwing the task force's precious time out the window? The serial case was far too brutal. It had already shocked higher authorities. Orders had come down like martial law, the case must be solved within 1 week. Absolutely no more victims could be logged out. Otherwise, the deputy director's position would be the first to go. He had come all the way here carrying high expectations, only to hear that the suspect's escape route was drawn based on the sense of smell of a young girl who sounded like she was joking around with the law. Captain Tran swallowed his frustration but still stepped forward firmly to vouch for me. Director Pham, Ms. Hammock is the only witness who has come face to face with the suspect. Her instincts are extremely sharp. Last night she detected the killer, and this morning she accurately pointed him out while he was hiding in the crowd. I believe this map is highly reliable. I'll personally lead a team of elite officers to review the surveillance footage immediately. The butcher's counter-surveillance ability was nearly flawless, the case had almost reached a dead end. On the other hand, the mysterious appearance of Hammock. might just be the golden key to breaking the stalemate. End of part 1. Please stay tuned for the next part. Like and follow my channel to get story updates faster. Thank you all very much.